Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. I hope you guys have had a great week. It is football time. Thursday Night Football is tonight. The Bucks are back at it versus Nebraska, who got mollywopped by the Indiana Hoosiers. Got special treats there. Got the bank in the building. Excited to see the bank. And he's going to break down some recruiting stuff, his thoughts on the season thus far. It's going to be real interesting. We'll take your questions. As always, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have really been kind of heeding the call. We've been asking you guys to keep subscribing to Apple Podcasts and to Spotify and our different formats. And again, it's such a huge help. We've been trying to grow those for a long time, and it's starting to get a little bit of traction. So I appreciate all you guys that have been doing that. We're far from where we need to be, but again, you guys are really helping us. So thank you. It's completely free to do. So if you have an iPhone, get on Apple Podcasts, type in Buckeye Scoop, click subscribe. It takes 25 seconds. It's completely free, and it is a humongous help for us. Again, we're trying to grow this audio format a little bit. YouTube is clicking along. We're almost to 33,000. We're about 50 away right now. So thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. That being said, going to bring in the bank, Bill, the Bank Greene, who is always on tilt and always on point when it comes to his thoughts. Again, people love the bank because he keeps it real. Bank, we've had an interesting time in Columbus over the last week, as you've seen a lot of Ohio State losses, and something that you always remind everybody is that we've won twice in 50 years. We've won the Natty, so if that's the judgment, then it's going to be a rough sledding. But how are you feeling about the team? I know Ryan Day has beaten the defensive staff into like he's Ramses in the Ten Commandments for the last 2 weeks or so. But I think these guys are dying to get to the field so they can stop getting beaten to death over this Oregon game. What are your thoughts on the team thus far, the Oregon game, and how are you feeling as the team projects forward?
Yeah, the way I look at things, I mean, there are different losses in college football.
Yes.
And when they had the 2-team playoff, there was no such thing as a good loss. I mean, you lose, you're probably going to be out. Auburn 1 year went undefeated and was out. Then they went to the 4-team playoffs, and then I think there did come up sort of a thing of a good loss versus bad loss. Bad loss would be OSU and Urban getting whacked by Purdue. Was that like 55-24 or so? I don't know. It wasn't that. That was the Iowa. There were so many of those waxings. The Purdue loss and the Iowa loss were just, destructions that when committee people look at your team and you get destroyed and you're not even competitive and your team looks like you don't even want to be there, that's a bad loss. But the other night, I mean, Ohio State losing to Oregon, well, it wasn't the other night, but it was a week and a half ago. To me, that was a good loss. You're on the road against one of the best teams in the country. No doubt. Oregon is a top 5 team in my mind. And you lose by an inch. It was competitive. It was back and forth. There's, if you look at the stats, the first downs, everything, I mean, that was a dead even game. So for Ohio State to go to a tough environment, play dead even, you lose Simmons on the O-line. Tigra went out on the O-line a little bit. I thought it was it's not going to be a good loss to the fans. They never want to lose. They want to go undefeated every year, and I get that. But to the committee, I think this loss is a really good loss. A bad loss would be Alabama's game versus Vanderbilt. That was a bad loss. You know what I mean? So not all losses are created equal. Of course, you want to go undefeated. I don't know if we're going to have any undefeated teams this year. It's hard. So I think Ohio State is in great position. I think they're a lock to make the playoffs, personally. The Penn State game could be problematic, but a 10-2 Ohio State team is absolutely in, even if they miss the playoff or the Big Ten championship. If it would happen to be Oregon and Penn State for the Big Ten title, and OSU's out there at 10-2 with losses on the road to Penn State and Oregon, I think they're forgivable. And I think 10-2 Ohio State with those losses, absolutely in. Now you go, or it would be, they wouldn't be in the Big Ten title. Now, if you go 9-3 with a loss to Michigan, you ain't got no chance and you do not deserve a chance, and you shouldn't want to go to the playoffs. But there's no chance Ohio State will lose to Michigan, and I think they're better than Penn State too. What I think will happen is I think Ohio State will get to the Big Ten title game, rematch with Oregon in Indianapolis, and I think Ohio State will beat them by 10. I think Ohio State is the better team, and let them play those last 6 seconds over again, as we talked about earlier, and Ohio State either wins the game or it's up to the kicker. The kicker's going to have a 45-yard shot, and he's got to make it. So I still think they're the best team right now. For all the teams I've seen, Georgia at their best, that ain't no fun playing them. But they're not vintage Georgia. They're not vintage Georgia. But the one thing about Georgia is Georgia can play fourth quarters. Ohio State has not proven yet that they can play fourth quarters in big games. So and I think if I had to, right now you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say Ohio State and Georgia are tied going to the fourth quarter of the national title game. And then Ryan Day and that group, they got to turn that crap around. Nope. You have to win fourth quarters to win national titles.
I mean, I agree, because I think that Georgia, like you said, Georgia at their best is a problem. Like if you said, Kirk, I'm going to put a gun to your head, and you can eliminate one team that Ohio State doesn't have to see in the playoffs, I'm eliminating Georgia over Texas, over Oregon, because Georgia, when they're dialed up and they're motivated and they're focused, they're really good. But then there's times where they give up 40-something to Bama, and they give up a bunch. I mean, Mississippi State scored all over the field, and Mississippi State lost to Toledo at home this year. So this isn't Mike Leach, vintage monster Mississippi State, Dan Mullen when they had Dak Prescott. This is a very mid Mississippi State team that lost to a MAC school at home. Yeah. So, I mean, Georgia, they're schizophrenic. But, I mean, again, I think
it's not vintage Georgia at all.
No, God, no.
Because Georgia, there's two sides of that coin, and it's in the Alabama game. Georgia was stuck 28-0 in that game. Nope. And 30-7, I believe, or 30-9 maybe. Ain't nobody coming back on Bama from that. But Georgia had the lead with a minute to go. When they decided, hey, we're about to get beat here, and we better start playing some football. I mean, that was amazing football that they played. And you could say the same thing about Bama. What team in America is good enough to get up on Georgia 28-0? Man, I don't know many. Mm-hmm. But Bama did. And Bama lost the lead, which makes you think, well, they're cooked. No, they come right back down the field and take it back. So those two teams at their best, and I think Bama might be cooked right now. I don't know. They don't seem the same. It's the second half of the Georgia game. Even though they won that game, they have not played well at all. But Georgia would be the scary one to me. Gun to my head, it's Georgia and Ohio State for the title. It's close in the fourth quarter. And at that point, Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, Will Howard, you got to do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's no – you got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, Ryan – it's funny. Someone brought up in a super chat that Ryan is a lot like Kirby Smart before he won the title, where the fan base is restless, and he's got all this. Kirby Smart's a defensive wizard, but he's losing 3 games a year and struggling. And, Ryan's offensive wizard, and how do we lose this game? So again, it's like until you get the big ring, it's like you don't have a monkey on your back. You have like King Kong on your back, because like that's what Ryan is. And again, Ross Bjork did not do him any favors saying that we've got a $20 million roster, which I thought was stupid, because I'm just like, don't put that on Ryan too, because every time we lose, that's what we hear about. But I didn't like him. I like the trajectory of the team. And again, this has been maybe the weirdest year I've ever seen for college football, because like when Alabama loses to Vanderbilt as the one, and then Texas, I mean, I watched the Texas All-22 film versus Georgia, and Texas really was, I think that they were feeling themselves a little bit. I think that their press clippings were a little heavy, and everyone's picking Texas. And, I've said all week that, this loss, if used correctly, could be the best thing that ever happened to this team, because I couldn't imagine the morale and Columbus and the town if we would have won this game, because the fan base is crazy. NIL deals, money, agents, draft stock, it just catapults. Now, when you lose, this fan base will beat you to death like they're cannibals. And so, again, I think that, in a 12-team playoff, again, I always go back to, and you haven't heard me say it, but I talk about when the Patriots lost to the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead, and that became the rallying point for, I think it was the year they beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl, where it was like, Belichick, the next week he said, we're on to Cincinnati, because they got bludgeoned at Arrowhead that night, and everyone's like, the dynasty's dead, Brady's dead, Belichick's dead, clean house, try to trade guys for draft picks. And, again, they use that loss to motivate. Now, again, you correctly mentioned that 2-team playoff, like when I played, if we lost a game, dead. I had a over. I mean, I had that miracle year against when we lost to Illinois, and I thought we were dead, and 7 other teams lost, so we were able to back our way in. But in this era, I think that a loss can be, and again, I'm not a loser, but I think it can be good, because again, I would hate to see the mentality of this team if they would have been undefeated. Because again, when you lose like you lose to Oregon, you got to make some changes. Like, we got to get some more pressure on the quarterback. We got to get more pressure, period. You got to get Denzel. You can't have your number one cornerback get annihilated by their number one receiver. And there's a lot of stuff you have to fix. Now, again, I thought the worst loss was Josh Simmons. Losing him as your All-American left tackle. I mean, he made every midseason All-American team. But Zen hung in there.
I thought he did. Now, he took a ton of criticism that I've read across the internet. Pro Football Focus had him rated.
Oh, they killed him.
Like he was a girl or something. But I disagree. And I'm not an anti-Pro Football Focus guy at all. But I think they're dead wrong. Ohio State gave up no sacks in that game. The official may show 1 sack on the first play of the final drive where Will Howard just freaking
fell down. Yeah, exactly.
Mateo might have gotten credited for a sack there. That wasn't Zen's fault. But other than that, Zen didn't have a 5-sack performance. He had nothing. And Ohio State ran for over 100 yards. They threw for 300 yards. How bad was Zen? How bad was that O-line? You know what I mean? So I've watched it. I've watched it 3 times. The last one specifically for Zen. Fast forwarded through every defensive play. Dude, I don't think he played badly at all. He didn't think he was going to play in that game.
No.
Go block Mateo.
Exactly. A 5-star number 1 defensive end in the country.
If he had all week to prepare and Justin Fry had him honed in, that's one thing. He didn't know he was going to be playing in that moment. I thought he hung in there really well, and I'm expecting Zen to play really well this week against Nebraska. He's had that week of practice. He knows it's his job. They've been able to work with him. So I was actually impressed by him, and I was stunned the way he got killed by everybody in that game. If it had been a 5 or 6 sack performance and you rushed 30 times for 81 yards, there's some culprits on the O-line then. But you go for 400 on the road against that team with no sacks, or I say no sacks. I'm sticking with no sacks. That 5 sacks.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a pretty darn good performance.
I mean, I'm telling you, I've been in his shoes as good.
Yeah, I was not disappointed in Zen's performance. And when Simmons went out and Zen came in, I thought he was going to be the key to that offense getting wrecked. Because I've never been high on him. But hey, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And in that moment, for what he was facing, I thought he played admirably. And I think he can build on that with the week of practice, in there with the starters. Now he knows it's his job. Fry knows it's his job. So I'm anxious to see Zen this week. That's probably the number one thing I'm going to be looking at this week is how does Zen handle himself, now that he's the dude, and he's either going to be the dude or he's going to forfeit that job.
Yep. Yeah,
so
and like
for me this week.
For me, I just looked at him like I've been in that situation where I was the backup in 2004 against Wisconsin, and they had a 1st-round pick named Erasmus James, and he destroyed Tim Schafer. It was, if you want to watch something funny, go watch the beginning of that game on YouTube. Go look up Ohio State, Wisconsin, 2004. In the first 15 plays, Erasmus James made 7. He had a sack, 2 tackles for a loss. I mean, it was a bludgeoning. And then all of a sudden they say, "Hey, you're in," and I was like, God bless. Of all the games I have to make my debut, I mean, where it's like they literally gave him the hook, and I played the rest of the game. I didn't give him a sack. Now I was out there fighting for my life, but to do it in a road game at Outson where it's loud and, the crowd is incited. And again, the network television cameras and the commentators were dying for him to have that moment, that Steve Bartman moment where the whole camera goes on him and it's like he gives up 2 sacks or the sack fumble that ends the game and makes the crowd go nuts. And they were praying for that. They were like, well, this will probably happen because the All-American, the kid that made the first team All-American on every midseason team is out. And now you got the kid who's never started a game coming in. And I'm like, Zen, like, dude, what you did was amazing because, again, you don't have to go out there and be Orlando Pace, but I mean, he didn't give him a sack. He didn't give up pressure. Again, there were some times where
don't lose the game for your team.
Exactly.
Don't out like a sore thumb is we're playing with 10 guys right now and a guy that can't play football. That wasn't the case. I mean, O-line way more than I do. What was your evaluation of Zen?
Dude, I'm telling you, like, because again, when you're a guy like him, again, Oregon's got 80 coaches on the sideline and in the box, and they're like, hey, Simmons, the All-American 71 left tackle, is out. He's on a cart, so he's done. Let's come after the left side. Let's blitz the left side. Let's harass. Let's test this kid. So again, I thought he hung in there for the situation. Again, I don't want to be over the top, but I mean, that's as good as I've seen where it's like a kid came in and you really didn't notice him at all. That's why it was funny. Like when Pro Football Focus gave like a 24%, I'm like, I watched the whole game. And again, yeah, I mean, and there's stuff you can always do better, but I'm like, dude, for this, and maybe I'm just a softie as a teacher, and that's probably why I'm not a teacher, but like, I would have given him the biggest curve of all time because I'm like, this kid, he warmed up for the game and he's standing there, and then all of a sudden the left tackle gets hurt in kind of a non-contact, like flukish thing, and he's got to go out there, and it's like, you didn't even notice him. I mean, that was, and the world was dying to notice that Zen gives up 2 sacks and we get mollywopped, but he hung in there. And again, another guy that I think needs to start is Austin Seyerveld. I think he's better than Tigra.
1,000%. I agree. I've been writing it all year. Every week. Seyerveld really outplayed Tigra.
Well, the crazy thing is Tigra pulled himself out for the last drive of the game. Like, so again, if you're looking around the huddle and it's like, okay, we got a 2-minute drive, 1:40, 1 timeout to go win the game at Outson. And Tigra was nowhere to be found. And Tigra, he pulled himself out in the first half. Then he played a lot in the second half. Then he pulled himself out again. And you put 67 out there. And he was going against 55, who is their D tackle from Michigan State, who's their best guy on the D line. And that kid on the last play of the game where Will Howard, took off and ran, he hit a spin move on Austin, and Austin ate it up, killed him. Like, didn't give an inch. And it was a good spin move, too. And the guy in Austin was like right there, had him locked in. And I was like, this kid needs to be our starting guard because Tigra, again, I watched the whole All-22 film, and he had 5 or 6 missed assignments where he went to the wrong linebacker. He screwed up gap protection. It is pretty remedial stuff. It's not big stuff. Again, I'm not trying to kill Tigra, but like, I think Austin earned the right to play more or start. But because eventually, if a guy wants to pull himself out for the 2-minute drive, he better be dead or his ACL better be hanging by a thread. Because again, that's not everything. But to me, if I'm the line coach, and again, I'm not trying to be critical of Tigra, but you better be really effing hurt if you're pulling yourself out when we need you the most for the last 100 seconds of the game with a timeout, going against Oregon and going against, again, that Harmon guy made every midseason All-American team too. He's had a good start to the season and paid him a lot of money, and he's been good, and he's he's the guy that took the ball from Quinn Sean, made the play of the game basically, and so again, I mean, I'm telling you, I was like, Austin needs to probably play and start. And again, I don't know if it is, I don't know if they're worried about Tigra transferring, but at some point you just got to play the best players. You can't just be held hostage because you think a guy might hit the portal.
No, best players got to play. I think Austin has outplayed Tigra from week 1.
Yeah.
I thought he's been the best player. Consistently the best player. So we'll see now. And like I say, I am not panicked over Zen. Now, if he gives up 4 sacks this week and, falls apart, then you got a problem. Then at that point, you probably have to maybe put Donovan Jackson outside and go with Tigra and Seyerveld the inside. But I hate seeing all that switch around. The ideal thing is if Zen comes in, he's not going to be an All-American. Just hang in there. Mm-hmm. Hang in there. That would be the best thing. Then everybody else stays in their same spot. You don't got to start moving people around. That's the ideal thing, is if Zen can play.
Yeah. I mean, again,
just be a good player. Be a decent player.
Yeah. The last two national championships, we started Darryl Baldwin at right tackle, and in 2002 we started Robbie Sims, who I love Rob Sims like a brother, but he's 6'2", and he played left tackle versus the Miami Hurricanes. So again, we've got it done with some guys that aren't really the optimal 6'7" Parrish Johnson-ish type guys. So again, with scheme, and again, the thing I would plead to these guys, I'm like, look, you got to let Fryer go one-on-one over there and just help Zen out a little bit early in the game to submit. You could put a tight end on his side. Again, our backs aren't really, they're not great at chipping, but you maybe chip him a little bit, but give him a little bit of help early in the game to make sure that he's fine and he's got his ski legs. Because again, the thing you figure out about these guys, because the guy that I want to see worse than anybody in the world, is probably the guy you want to see too, is Denzel. Don't see how Denzel Burke responds, because again, when you've been,
I don't think he's going to get tested this week by this offense. This offense stinks. So this is not against Evan Stewart. And he may not get tested the rest of the year like this. I mean, the Penn State wide receivers, they're okay, but he's probably going to see Evan Stewart again. And I hope to God that he remembers that his draft stock took a hit the other night. And he played back. He was as big a part of losing that game as anyone. You never blame losing a game on one kid, but he did his part for Oregon. He was terrible. He was really the cornerbacks were bad. He was bad. Hancock, who I really liked a lot, he wasn't very good. Iggy hung in there pretty good, but he wasn't, he wasn't all Big Ten that night either. So those guys really got, and that shouldn't happen. I think they're all three really good players. It happens. Get better, work harder. You're going to see those guys again. I believe you're going to see Oregon again and shut them down.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be fascinating, because football is so much mental toughness, because when you get, it's like playing tackle, man. Again, when you have that bad play tackle, you have that sack or a sack fumble or a sack fumble for a touchdown. It's like same thing's giving up a throw over your head when you're a quarterback. Is like, can you come back? And again, I know Nebraska, not good. I mean, they got mollywopped by Indiana, which wasn't good. But it'll be interesting to see how these guys bounce back as we go forward, especially as they're going to, I mean, Drew Aller, your guy he's playing great. Yeah. I mean,
he's making mistakes, but like you just mentioned, last year he couldn't overcome mistakes.
No.
This year he is. He had a couple screw ups against USC and on the road, and you're thinking, uh-oh, buddy, are you going to fall apart again? No. He was really good when he needed to be. So that'll be a good game, and almost like, we talk about Ryan Day, the same thing's going to happen there with James Franklin. You know what I mean? Are you ever going to get over that hump, pal? So you're at home. You've got a good team. Ain't no better time than right now, James. No. But like I said, this week, I just think the hammer is coming down this week. You've got an Ohio State team that is ticked off. They're at home. Week of rest. Man, I just think the hammer is coming down this week. I'm looking for 21-0 first quarter, 35-3 at the half, 42-10 at the end of 3, and then the AYOs go in and it's 52-17 or something. But I really think Ohio State's going to murder this team. And the one thing about Ryan Day, man, when he gets a chance to murder somebody, he murders them.
He loves to turn it up, man.
He loves pounding people at home, man. He sends the home folks happy. The thing about Ryan is people criticize him for performance in big games. You know what you don't criticize him for? Not performance in little games. He don't lose them little games. Where Urban would have some horrible missteps that you couldn't believe could happen. Ryan Day really doesn't get upset.
No.
Especially at home. When he's supposed to win at home, he wins. So I'm really expecting a 56-13 or something this week. And I think there could be a little Dylan Raiola magic. You think they're not mentioning that this week?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. A kid decommits on you and
Yeah, Dylan better have, his O-line better be on point because that team has not been able to sack people, that Buckeye defense. I think they get 2 or 3 sacks this week. I just think this is going to be a great performance. I think all the ingredients are there to see the number 1 team in the country just beat the dog out of this Nebraska team. I'm convinced it's going to be a butt kicker.
Yeah, I mean, when you've been beat to death in this town, again, I've lived being a player on this team and a coach on this team where we get beat to death when we lose, and it's like you just can't wait to get out there and play. And again, this is the type of team that can inflict serious pain, and because again, we're so skilled, we're so talented, and we've just been beaten like it's like beating a vicious dog. Like the dog's going to come out and bite your neck off, and you're going to be bleeding all over the place. Because that's where I think we're heading to. Because I think these players are tired of it. I know they're tired of it, and the coaches are tired of it. And again, Nebraska's limping in here after getting thrashed by Indiana. And again, Indiana, and I'm going to get your take on them in a second because they're coming. Is that your team? You like those guys?
Yeah. Well, I had a casual relationship with Kurt Signetti back when he was a nobody. So on the side, I always refer to him as the great Kurt Signetti because he's a good dude. And, to have Indiana undefeated right now, you know what? Nobody's coming close to them. They are flat out annihilating people. And I think they have 20 or 21 starters returning on that team. I mean, it's a veteran team. Been pushed around for a while. I think sometimes we see when those teams that are downtrodden start tasting success. They're dangerous, man. They're now without Rourke, man. Rourke's been so good for them.
Yeah.
To me, he's been the Big Ten MVP this year.
Yeah.
And he's been gone for a while. So we'll see, man, if they can keep it rolling. They get Washington this week. I think it's an interesting game. I really think it's an interesting game. So, but, Indiana's there's a chance they can be in the playoffs.
Oh, God. Yeah. They're 13 right now. I mean, they hang in there versus Ohio State. I mean, they don't
have to beat Ohio State. But 11-1 Indiana, absolutely in without question. 10-2 Indiana, man, they're right there.
Yeah.
They're right there. And then it'll come down to, do they put a 3-loss LSU or Ole Miss in ahead of Indiana? So we're going to see. But 11-1 Indiana with the only loss to Ohio State. I don't care if it's 62-3. They're in at 11-1. So we got to see how they handle losing Rourke, man, because he's been so good for them.
Yeah, and the two things are, again, the thing I always tell people, we get to November, because again, trust you, so I say November is for contenders, is who stays healthy is huge. So when your quarterback goes down, all of a sudden, you go from your milk and honey to brimstone. When all of a sudden you lose the wrong guys, man, it makes it tough. But I like rooting for a team like Indiana because I think that they play tough football. And again, I thought when Wilson was there, he was, I mean, dude, the maddest I've ever seen Urban Meyer in my entire life was in 12. We play Indiana at Indiana, and our 2012 team was we went undefeated, but we were not a good team. We were terrible, and we won 52-49 in Bloomington. Wow, and that is the maddest I've ever seen a head coach ever. Because Urban, it was great for Tom Herman and Ed Warner and I, because Urban was not in the offensive staff room for a single minute the entire next week. He was sitting in there with your boy Luke and with Everett Withers, and it was the killing fields over there. And we were like, this is the greatest week of our lives because we don't have Darth Vader, we don't have the Prince of Darkness up in our hind end the whole week. And again, I love Coach Meyer. I was texting with him last week, so I was asking him about how do you resurrect and recalibrate after a loss? Because he was the master of it. Because we had that terrible Virginia Tech loss at home that was ridiculous, and then and then in 08, which he thinks is one of the best teams in history, they lose to Ole Miss at home at the Swamp. With the Jevin Sneed at quarterback, they come into the Swamp and they beat the Tebow and Harvey and Harvin.
But Tebow made the promise after that game.
I know.
On YouTube, he said, "I promise I'm going to work hard."
I know.
something,
They put the statue up and they put that up on the board, but like, because Urban, when he's at his best at motivating, man, that guy, I mean, he's that guy. So again, he turned that into, we're gonna coach harder, and I'm gonna, again, you've told me the story about when you were with the SFE guys in the locker room, and Carlos Dunlap says, coaches, you guys didn't coach us hard enough. You guys weren't mean enough to us. So when you say that to Urban Meyer, man, it's going to turn into, he's going to beat them coaches to death in the staff meeting that'll go to probably about 4 a.m., but again, like, that's, how do you do it? Like, how do you turn a loss into something that can actually catapult you to be even better? Because again, I played on a team like the 06 team. The best thing that could have happened to us if we played in a playoff era is if we would have lost the game. And then we also, okay, we're better stop feeling ourselves, better stop thinking that we're that good, because we tasted our blood. We got punched in the mouth and we're bleeding. And again, 06, we walk into the Florida game, we get absolutely bludgeoned by Urban, because Urban, again, they had the motivation. Like, everyone picked us to win. And I think that if Ohio State would have beaten Oregon, they'd be the number one team, unanimous, and coasting into the playoffs, and we don't really need to fix stuff, and we don't need to fix our pressure packages, and we don't need to play better in coverage, and we don't need to block better in the run, whatever. But when you lose one, all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's rip the Band-Aid off and fix stuff. Because again, I think that when you lose, you can kind of really recalibrate and say, okay, what did we do right? And what do we really need to hammer? And again, Ryan Day had some very, very spicy conversations with Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson, and why don't we pressure the quarterback, and why can't we get sacks, and what's going on blitzes, and do we need to blitz more? So it's been a nice, warm couple of weeks in the Woody Hayes where, again, it's like when you ask if I miss coaching, I'm like, no, I don't miss it after that midseason loss. I do not miss that at all. Because that's when those coaches earn their money, because they're getting the Ryan Day dragon breathing fire down their necks the entire week. But again, when you lose, that's what you get. But again, I think that a loss is good because it's a catalyst. Because again, with the kids, if the kids win that game, oh, coach, why are you being so hard on us when we won? We're undefeated, coach. We're undefeated. We're unanimous in the polls. Like, why are you being such an a-hole to us? It's like, but when you lose, then there's none of that. That's all dead. Because 12-team playoff, man, it's like you just got to get in the game. You get a chip in a chair, man. You can go win that whole thing, and who knows? And again, if you're the 5 seed, you don't. Again, like the dream scenario to me, and this is crazy, but if you somehow miss the Big Ten title game and make the playoffs, and you're the number 5 seed, that'd be the greatest scenario of all time. Because then you get your bye week basically a week early, and you dodge playing a physical, good Oregon team. And I think that's the best way to do it. So. But what are your thoughts on that? Again, because the playoff seeding is interesting, because if you're the 5 seed, you don't get your bye for the playoffs, but you could potentially have a bye for you don't play in the conference championship game. But what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I don't want that extra playoff game. I don't want that at all. I want to win that Big Ten and not have to play in the first week. You know what I mean? You conceivably could go Bama, Tennessee, Georgia, you know what I mean? I don't want an extra game. I don't want an extra game of that stuff, man. I want the bye really badly. And that's why I think, I think Ryan Day will put the hammer down to get to the Big Ten title game and win it. I think it's important. I don't want to play that extra playoff game. I don't want to play on week 1. I want to sit home and watch. Let those guys bang.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important. I really do. I'm not saying it can't be done out of the 5 to 12 spot, but man, I don't want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, winning a ring, I think, is important, because these guys they don't need a jewelry box. They don't have a single ring their entire careers. These 4-year guys, I mean, I've got 6 gold pants and 5 rings and all this. It's like, and I don't care about anything because I don't wear any of it, but it's like, these guys haven't won anything. So I think to get a gold pants and a ring would be huge for them, because winning, as you've said a million times, winning a national championship is so incredibly hard that it's happened twice since 1970. So if that's what you hang your happiness on, then you're probably going to be a sad person at the end of the year. Again, because it's so hard to do. Again, I got to the dance twice and we lost. It's like, you don't get a ring for trying or for showing up. You get a ring for winning it. And unfortunately, we played like crap in the 2 games that we had, so it sucked. But Let's move to recruiting because we're kind of coming down the stretch a little bit last month and a half before the initial signing day. That's really the big signing day. Is there any hope on any of the big fish? Are they all dead? Again, obviously you always hope that something happens. Go ahead.
Yeah. I always think that maybe November is going to be the month. Toward the end of November that's when the final NIL offer comes in. If you're holding back a little bit now, that's it. You know what I mean? It's like, when you're trying to buy a house and you're bidding, this final bid time now. So something could happen there. For the most part, I think Ohio State is pretty set. I think the main thing now is not losing anybody. Don't lose Alford. Don't lose TJ Alford. And these kids take visits now, man. They don't, it's no problem taking late official visits. And then can you flip someone? Can you get somebody out of there that's committed somewhere else? And then we're back to the O-line again. Now I really like Carter Lowe. I think Carter Lowe's got a chance to be pretty darn special as probably a right tackle, but he is a tackle. And then it's you got beat on a bunch of guys, and it's either project time or it's let's get the NIL money and let's overspend for a tackle. They're bringing the kid in this week's committed to Georgia Tech, Damola Aji-Dahan. He's a project. Okay, let's not sugarcoat it. But he's a project that I would look at because he's 6'6". He's 280 pounds. He's got a skill set as a tackle, okay? Now, is he raw? Oh, my gosh. He is so raw. It's unbelievable. So you're going to have to coach a dog out of that kid. I think they're going to get him, too. I think he's going to flip to Ohio State. And then, it's like with, you take projects, man, that's what they are. You know what I mean? So you coach him up. He's super intelligent, which I love. He's super long and tall, which I love. So if I'm going to reach, this is the dude I'm reaching for, not the 6'3" interior guard or center. I'm not reaching for those guys. I'm going to reach for this dude. If I have to reach, this guy's the one I reach for. He's got the raw skill set. And then it's up to you and him to make it happen. But 6'6", long arms and kind of a dancing bear type dude, man, I'm in on that. And he's super intelligent too. Stanford, Georgia Tech are in on it. Hey, let's go.
I agree. What percentage of linemen do you honestly think aren't projects, offensive linemen specifically? Because again, I think that a lot, I'd say the majority of them are projects coming out just because depending on the system that they're in, their height, again, the thing that's been kind of tough is I feel like in the last 20 years, quarterbacks and receivers have become so much more advanced because of 7-on-7 football.
Oh yeah.
And there's so JJ can show up and he's like, I've been going against 5-star SEC corners for the last 5 years of my life playing for SFE versus Trillionaire and all these Miami, South Florida 7-on-7. It's like every week it'd be like if I could go to somewhere when I was growing up and I could go against Javon Curse every week at some camp and get better and better and better. But that doesn't really exist for linemen. So I just, I always think there's a balance because obviously, do you wish that there was a Paris Johnson every year? Of course. But the odds of, if there's the one guy that's close to that's Carter, at least in state, then David Sanders.
He's really good. I think he's a right tackle, but man, I think he's really good. And, is he a high 4? Is he a 5? I don't know. He's someone I want. And
of course.
Go to the opposite end of the spectrum, a kid I like. I don't like him as a first-round NFL pick, 4-year starter, all Big Ten, 3 years. Jake Cook, the kid from Westerville North.
Yeah.
Would I take him? Yes, but I would like to take him as my 5th, not as my 2nd. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Javon McFadden. Is there something to like there with Javon McFadden? Yeah. Would I take Javon? Yeah, but I don't want a whole team full of Javons. I don't want a whole recruiting class full of Javons and Jake Cooks and Aji DeHoons. I don't want to. I like one of them, two of them, but give me three dudes. You know what I mean? So right now, if you do get Demola to flip this weekend, you're sitting there with what I think is one surefire, and those sometimes fail, but I think Carter's got a pretty darn good chance of success. And then three that you're rolling dice on, and that's the way it's been lately with Fry's O-line classes. You got a lot of dice rollers, man, in there, and to me, it's not good enough. When you look at every other position group, you know what I mean? Would Hartline take the equivalent of these guys in his group? No chance. Well, then why don't you have the same expectation for O-line when it's one of the most important position groups in the sport? So I don't know.
I think
I like all these guys. I like all of them individually, aside from Carter Love. I just don't want all of them.
Yeah, well, I think that
you two projects.
Mentally, to me, I think that it's like Brian Hartline taking Bogpin Miller, the kid from from Mansfield. Good talent, good kid, project. I think that to me, Bill, and I'm gonna ask you a question. It's gonna be like kind of a two-parter. How much has it changed now with the transfer portal for one, and NIL for two? Because again, you can load up on kids, and again, a lot of these kids, as we know with the SFE kids like Jamie French and some of those guys, it's like they want a significant amount of money to come here. Now, do you want to pay money up front for them to come here? And then all of a sudden in a year they transfer out, then you're out a big chunk of cash. Where as opposed to like this year where I feel like Brian Hartline, I don't want to say he's taken the year off, but there's not a JJ in this class. There's not we didn't get Jamie, we didn't get Vernell. But I think that when you've got Ennis and Tate and JJ next year as your three starters, like a lot of these kids, they see the JJ thing and they're like, well, I want to be JJ. I want to start as a true freshman first day. And, there aren't any JJs walking around. But, like with the line, I think that, because again, I give, as much as Justin gets beat to death in recruiting, I give him credit on Josh Simmons, because Josh turned into a guy that I talked to player personnel director this week, and he's like, he was on our board as a first rounder. Now they got to look at the knee, patellar tendon, but he was late first round, because of his movement skills and his athleticism. And again, we got him from San Diego State, and you and I weren't ultra excited about him when he had 17 penalties his first year starting. Right. But again, Justin kind of farmed him out of there and pulled him out, and I thought he was pretty good this year. And but I just, I think
I still think the high school recruiting has to be that has to be what you're leaning on, and then you go pluck a guy out of the portal.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you can build your team through the portal.
No. God, no. No, I don't think you'd ever have a culture if you did that. I think you can add 5 or 6 guys a year, maybe.
It's an all-star team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of building a program, the right way, the way it's been done at Ohio State all along. Do I like adding Judkins and Seth and Downs? Oh my gosh, yes.
Will Howard.
15. I don't want to bring in 15 of them a year.
Yeah.
I want to sprinkle because my recruiting is so good that I don't need to scour the country to fill 10 spots every year. I don't want to do that. And like I said, this year with Hartline's recruiting, he does have Quincy Porter committed. I think Quincy Porter's a dude. Yeah. I think he's in this. I think he's Carnell Tate. He's not JJ. Nobody is. JJ got made in a lab. They don't make them anymore. So forget JJ as a comparison to anyone, but maybe Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison today, not Marvin Harrison
as a freshman. Yeah.
So you got Quincy Porter, who's a dude. The Bell kid out of California, I got people out there that I trust, that I've known for years, telling me that he can be Chris Olave. And my response is, if he's Chris Olave, then he's going to play next year somewhere. And then, like you mentioned, the Bopen Miller. Is he a project? He's absolute project. But he is a 6'3", 6'4", 180-pound kid that can run that doesn't play wide receiver yet. Is he going to start next year? No. Do you need him to start next year? I do not. But let Hartline mold, Bodpen Miller over a year or two. Man, you can't coach 6'3" or 6'4" and can run. athletic as can be. So I have no problem with taking him. I have no problem at all. When you have J.J. Carnell, Ennis coming back, backed up by the dudes that are backing them up this year, it's hard to attract a stud that everybody else is telling them you will be on the field next year for us. Jamie French's going to be on the field next year. He wouldn't be at Ohio State. And I like Jamie. Jamie is not playing for Ohio State next year. Vernell's not playing for Ohio State next year. I love them kids, the SAP kids. They're going to sit a while. So, yeah, I have no problem with what Hartline's done this year at all, because he did get a dude in Quincy Porter, I feel. Yeah. I think Quincy's special.
Yeah, and obviously he's recruited at a level that no one's ever seen before, so he can, kind of not it's not take a year off, but like when the next, it's like
not at all.
When you have JJ last year, and then this next year you could get Caden Dixon Wyatt and Chris Henry. It's like
next year's going to be the typical Brian Hartline recruiting year next year, because the 2026 class is loaded. It's a better overall class, I think, than the 2025 class is nationwide, and he's in on some dudes. So, and this class, like I say, Quincy Porter, I think, is right there with Innocent Tate, who we all think is really good. If the Bell kid is anywhere near Chris Olave, he doesn't have to be Chris Olave. If he's half of Chris Olave, he's going to play at Ohio State. And then can the Miller kid, is that a kid that Hartline molds him? Takes the clay, takes his time, no pressure on that kid. You're going to redshirt next year for sure. But, man, 6'3", 6'4", can run. I'll take a chance on that kid.
Well, and plus he's an Ohio kid, so he's not going to need a huge NIL deal. He's not like our South Florida kids, man. You got to get the Brinks truck out for JJ and some of these.
You have to. And the Miller kid is not going to come to Ohio State and get ticked off if he doesn't get catches in PT next year. He knows why he's coming to Ohio State. He knows he's on a 5-year plan, man. Trust Hartline. So this is not JJ and those guys, but this is a good class. If Quincy Porter ends up being a dude and Bell ends up being a contributor, then you're fine. Great class. Because next year, man, you watch out. They will have the #1 wide receiver recruiting class in the country for 2026, because they are stacked and locked into dudes. He'll be doing some selecting next year as opposed to recruiting. Plus, there'll be probably a lot of NIL money is going to come off the books. Money got put out there this year. That money comes off the books, so they're ready to roll next year. They'll be like a 15-year-old girl with birthday money at the mall.
It's going to be fun next year. We got a super chat. Buckeye 1, thanks for the deuce. Bill, why didn't OSU go after Michigan's new O-line recruit? I've been asked this a bunch. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, he's not from. And see, the thing was with that kid is, if you look at him as a national recruit, which he is, he's not from Louisiana, where you got to fight LSU to get him. He's not from Georgia, where you got to fight Kirby. He's from Kansas. He's not going to Kansas State or Kansas. So he's wide open. He's a guy I would have targeted. I mean, I would have definitely went after that guy. And I don't remember his name being mentioned, with Ohio State. And if you're willing to look at Michigan, you're sure as heck going to look at Ohio State. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had an answer there. I mean, he's the guy that I'm going after because he's from Kansas. He's not staying in state. Right off the bat that he is leaving his state. But you go after these kids in Alabama and Louisiana and Georgia, man, you got to fight the in-state bias. And that kid sat on his dad's lap for 5 years watching the dogs play. Good luck. I'll recruit against Kansas and Kansas State for a dude. And so I wish I had an answer there. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you it's funny you bring that up, because I was going to ask you before we get out of here on Jakeem Stewart, because he's the guy that everybody loves now, because we didn't get the left tackle that went to Tennessee, so now it's David Sanders Jr. goes to Tennessee, the world ends. Jakeem Stewart reclassifies. I mean, again, I've said a million times, if we pull
him, I don't like him reclassifying. I think it's a mistake. I saw him this summer. I mean, he's impressive. He needs another year of high school. Now, he may come in next year and be good, But I just that the Sonny Styles thing is always in my mind about the
Oh yeah.
reclassifying. Really, just let your body develop. You work your butt off, but take everything as it comes. You don't need to go to college at 17, especially that position. That's a man's position,
Oh,
and he looks at the part and everything. But man, another year of high school, I think would benefit the heck out of that kid. I think he's making a mistake. Now, would every team in the country take him on that mistake? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
It would take him a minute. I just hate it for the kid's personal development. I'd like to see him stay another year in high school. Just take it as it comes. It's all going to be there for you. You know what I mean? Everything you want is going to be there. Just develop at your pace. Don't rush it. I hate it. I hate the reclassification deal, but it's his life.
This will be the easiest question of all time. Do you think that this rash of reclassifies from Ewers to Sonny Styles to Jakeem Stewart, is it purely NIL driven?
I don't think Sonny's was.
Or do you think it's just, they're just trying to get to the NFL a year younger?
Man, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Oh.
You were pretty much involved in the Ewers thing. That didn't seem like an NIL thing to me. I don't know. You would know more than that one.
Well, I mean, like, because my thing is,
Sonny's definitely not coming from, Lorenzo and
Laverna,
yeah, great people. There's no
the
way
best,
that's not an NIL thing. So, yeah, with Jakeem, I don't know there. That I don't know. I just think you got to look long term. And if I'm advising, for some reason, Jakeem Stewart made me his advisor tomorrow, he's going back to high school, man. He's going to happen. It'll all happen for you. You don't need to rush the process. I've seen guys rush the process. Now, Ewers is in perfect position right now. He's set, I think. I think it was open. But Sonny should have played his senior year. I wish Sonny would have. And then he came to Ohio State. He's playing safety. Now he's a linebacker. He came early. Where would Sonny – we don't know the answer, but where would Sonny be today if he goes back and plays his senior year, lets that body develop another year, maybe comes in, doesn't play the safety thing, plays linebacker, where would he be today?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not giving up on Sonny, and I write that every day on the message board. You don't ever give up on – there's two things you don't give up on when they have both things, talent and attitude. If you got both of those things, I'm waiting on you to your senior year. I'm never giving up on that. And Sonny has talent. Sonny has brains and attitude. So, and Sonny could pop this week with 20 tackles and 4 sacks against Nebraska. He could be one of those guys that when he comes like this.
Yeah.
It all clicks. The light comes on and boom, he's a terror. So you don't give up on Sonny Styles. Not at all. Yeah. And if you look at, who played that spot last year? Steel Chambers. Sonny's better right now than Steel Chambers was last year. Mm-hmm. He's an improvement. He's just not when we thought you were getting, Ryan Shazier Jr., and he hasn't been that. He was a 5-star. He was all the hype. So he's looked at as a disappointment. But to me, that outside linebacker spot is improved this year. Sonny playing as he's playing right now is better than Steel Chambers played it last year. Mm-hmm. So let's not get down on Sonny and give up on Sonny. He's got talent. He's got attitude. And I never give up on those kids. I'm sticking with them until it's over.
I think with the reclassification, the thing that's hard with all the two that we talked about, Quinn Ewers and obviously Sonny Styles, is that when you give up that last year of high school, you go from playing 10 to 15 games. Obviously, you're starting. You're the Quinn. I mean, Quinn went from starting 14, 15 games at South Lake Carroll to not playing at all, like to being scout team and not traveling. So again, it's more getting those 75 reps a game where it's a live rep and everything's live, and the development you make. I just think about, and obviously you can go back 1,000 years to when I played at Perry. It's like from my junior to my senior year was gigantic, gargantuan. Even like at Ohio State, from my freshman year to my sophomore year to my junior year, it was like humongous jumps each year. So the hard part for me is when you're like Sonny Styles and you reclassify. And again, I love his parents. I'm very tight with them. Great people.
Yeah.
I was telling you, you go from being a guy that's going to play 65 plays every Friday night to a guy that's going to play 7 or 8 plays at Ohio State, maybe special teams. And because like if Jakeem Stewart commits to Ohio State today and he's part of the plan, like, is he going to start? Probably not as an 18-year-old. So what's he going to play? I mean, you've seen how we rotate our backup D linemen. Like, I mean, again, I think and I love Larry Johnson to death, and I don't know who does it, but like Tyleek playing 55 plays a game, and then you get Hero plays 2, and Jason Moore plays 5, and Caden McDonald plays like 10. So it's like if Jakeem is the backup D tackle, he's going to play 7 or 8 plays a game, maybe. So again, I don't think that helps develop you as a pass rusher and as a football player when you're barely playing in the real games, because practice is great, but the games are where you really figure out if you can play or not. Yeah, I mean, anybody can look good in practice, but you're out there in front of 100,000 people and you have your Denzel Burke moment where you get torched and you get beat to death by the fans, and you figure out how tough you are mentally when you have one of those games. And I don't wish that on anybody, but a lot of football players have had a lot of bad games in front of the world, and you figure out it is. I mean, that's why people tune in to see the great stuff, and they tune in to see the pain too. So it's like, it's the whole spectrum of emotion. So, but I'm going to wrap this thing. Bill, this was fantastic. Again, I appreciate you, my man. Any final thoughts as we wrap the show up?
No, I think there's a junior linebacker that's visiting this week, obviously unofficially, in Storm Miller, younger brother. Blake Miller, now starting for Clemson. Ohio State wanted Blake coming out of Strongsville, and Blake went to Clemson. And to me, that was a great choice he made. I want to see the kids do well. So Blake has started every game at Clemson since he's been there. He's going to have a chance this year to leave early, which is not what Dabo likes, but we don't care what Dabo likes, the kids. So Blake made a great choice going to Clemson, but Storm is absolutely 1,000% not locked into Clemson. These kids, great parents, they're going to make their own decision. I think James Laurinaitis has got a great chance to land this kid, and to me, this kid is Tommy Eichenberg 2.0. I hung my hat on Tommy Eichenberg when he was a 3-star kid committed to BC, and I pounded the table at 24/7 that he was a 4-star and he was absolute Ohio State material. And I hung my hat on that, and I'll go down with that ship, but I was right on Tommy. And see, Storm Miller, he could be that jack guy that Jim Knowles really wants. Or right now, I would say he's going to be an outside backer. But he might be Tommy Eichenberg and play that Mike. And he might play it better than Cody Simon's playing, who's a pretty darn good player. So Ohio State's got to fight to get him. And the outside horse coming on the outside, nobody's paying attention to, is Luke up in Wisconsin. I think that's more of a fight for Ohio State probably than Clemson is. But he's visiting this weekend, Storm is, and we both think the world of James Laurinaitis as a person and as a recruiter. So this is a good chance for Ohio State. They've already offered Storm. He's totally misranked at 24/7. They've got him as a high 3, I think, and number 10, 12 in Ohio. He's top 5 in Ohio, trust me. And I watched him at the Hall of Fame camp there, not last summer, but summer before, and Ryan Day was in the same group. We were watching him, and he got offered, not long after that. And Ryan
5 minutes after camp, yeah.
So it's a big visit this weekend for Ohio State, because he's not the typical Ohio kid that you send him a letter, an offer, and tell him when to show up. Now, you're going to have to recruit this kid. But I like your chances with JL. And I think he really fits with what James Laurinaitis wants to do. It kind of reminds me of James Laurinaitis as a player. But he's really versatile. That's what I like about Storm. Storm could play anywhere, man. So that's something I'm looking for this week. And I'll be checking in to see just how that visit goes to kind of get ear to the ground there. But I think he would fit perfectly at Ohio State. 2026 linebacker. Lot to like there. Very athletic. Nothing like his brother, O tackle. Totally opposite athletically. This kid can play.
Hey, man, tackles can be athletic too, man. Don't hate on all of us. Jeez.
Blake is not Storm, and I like Blake. Blake's a great kid, but Blake's not Storm on your athletic department. But Blake's
I love it.
So,
hey, man, this is awesome, Bank. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you, my dude. Huge show. The Bank brought it tonight, man. I appreciate you, Bill. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys for all that you guys do. Leave some feedback for the Bank. I thought the Bank did fantastic. He brought some recruiting heat. So again, I appreciate you guys that enjoy this. Again, if you guys could do something huge for us, it'd be follow us, Apple Podcasts, search Buckeye Scoop, click download, and click subscribe. Again, I appreciate you guys that are helping us out with that. Trying to grow the audio platform, and you guys have been responding incredibly well. So thank you for that. Again, I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great Thursday. Thursday Night Football is about to kick off. So we tried to time it up about perfect. I think we did it. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. We'll be back again tomorrow, 7 p.m. with Nevada. Actually, no, excuse me. Tomorrow will be an early show. Tomorrow we're probably going to go at about 5. So you guys get ready to rock early tomorrow, 5 p.m. I'll put the show up nice and early so you guys can see it, and we'll be ready to rock. So as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.